Well, as I say there, that headline number coming in negatively, 24% fall in full year profit, and that figure underscoring what is a tough industry, a tough operating environment right now. Speaking to a few market watchers this morning, though, there's talk of the industry possibly having reached the trough. What's your perspective?
Yes, I put up some graphs earlier today, and the commentary I had on them is that if I was an economics 101 student, it's pretty clear looking at the graphs that we're coming out of a cycle, we're going from a negative cycle into positive. However, the world doesn't work today according to economics 101. But all things being equal, we should be going into a growth cycle now after 4 years of being in a very bad depressed cycle.
So offering some encouragement seems to be the kind of national statistics we've seen come through, where overall South Africa's cement sales are up 2.1% for the first 9 months of this year.
Yeah, if you look at it for our financial year, the sales were actually flat in South Africa. In our case, we have, the sales don't behave exactly the same in all regions of the country. So especially in the coastal areas, we've seen a big decline in sales, more than the average of the country. So we've got a strong position in the coastal areas, so we've taken more than our fair share of that decline. So our numbers are slightly down. But yeah, again, looking at the numbers, and a lot of the numbers that you see coming through don't include imports. Yeah. Again, I shared with investors today, we did some research on imports, and if you add imports to the number of the domestic producers, and the number is relatively small, it's 4%, but it's 2% bigger than what it was last year. So if you add the imports, there's another 2% that's coming through in the statistics as growth. So
one assumes then you've got that rand weakness working as a double-edged sword for a company like PPC, where of course you're exporting, but then a weaker rand posing a little bit more of a challenge for those imports that have proven to be competition for a player like yourselves.
Yeah, a rand is a double-edged sword for us. We're very exposed to energy prices, and they tend to rise when the rand weakens. However, on the import side, we find imports more difficult for the other players when the rand strengthens. So what we're seeing at the moment, at 7 rand to the dollar, there was about 4% import coming into South Africa. Even after a month of 8 to the dollar, we're seeing those imports disappearing very quickly.
Within this market, though, you've still managed to push through improved selling prices. How much of a challenge was that with a market that's still very much under distress?
It was a huge challenge, and there's a story behind that. That we tried a price increase, an inflationary price increase in January, didn't work. So we announced 5–6%. We ended up with 2%. But then during the latter part of the year, we enhanced our products. So we've made a very serious enhancement to our products. We're offering, if you look at the marketing campaign for PPC at the moment, 15% more value, 15% more strength from concrete or cement made with PPC cement. And that enabled us, with the strength enhancements, to put through a 5% price increase later in the year.
Still, though, not enough, or not nearly enough to offset those rising input costs, where cost of sales increased 11%.
Yeah. A large component of that is fuel prices. I was quite surprised when our team did the statistics, and it's been creeping up on us. But the diesel price, apparently at the average for us year to year, is 26% up against last year. So that's a big number. And then, of course, electricity prices. But unfortunately, we don't, well, fortunately perhaps, we don't have a no side batting for us. We can't go out to the clients and demand a 25% price increase.
And that putting the focus then on the company itself, internal operations, and in that regard, I mean, you've seen other operating expenditure drop back a bit. So let's talk through that restructuring process of the company, and just how much more restructuring we should be looking forward to within PPC.
Okay. Yeah, we restructured, we reduced our headcount by 6% this year. And very proud that we were able to achieve that without any forced retrenchment.
So it's voluntary?
Voluntary packages. We offered quite generous voluntary packages, and the rationale for that is that the packages this year cost us 30 million, but we're projecting an 80 million saving going forward. So a net, it's certainly worthwhile doing for ourselves and the employees concerned. And if you look at the numbers this year, we've got a negative 30 for the restructuring cost. We're getting a positive 80 next year for the benefits. So there's a 110 million rand swing just in restructuring for next year.
So that within your South African operations, let's talk about this expansion into Africa, because it seems like you're moving forward with that pretty aggressively moving forward. Just how selective are you of the territories you're venturing into? Because, I mean, we've already had cases in point where Zimbabwe's domestic sales improved by more than 50% during the year, but then Botswana saw a slowdown with the slowdown that came through in government spend on infrastructure.
Cement's a long-term business. When we build a cement plant, it's for 30 years. Many of our plants, I released some other numbers today, have been running for 50, 60. Our plant at Pretoria was opened by President Paul Kruger in 1992. That's 120 years ago. So we have to take a long-term view. You have to look at the macroeconomics. And if we look at Africa, we've defined as a target area approximately a third of the continent, stretching from Botswana, Zimbabwe, all the way to Ethiopia and southern Sudan. And all of those areas, if you look at the basic economics, are ready for growth. Africa is the growth story of the moment. It's right on our doorstep.
At this stage, you're one of two bidders to buy that 58% stake in the Democratic Republic of Congo's state-owned cement producer.
Yeah.
What are the odds looking like? Are they stacked up in your favor?
No. From what we can make out, we had to submit a financial and a technical bid, and we're pretty even. So it's, I don't want to preempt the process, but I would suspect there might be a second round. And unfortunately, the process was delayed, and we're now into elections in the DRC. So all the politicians are out politicking in their provinces. So we don't expect to have an answer, too soon. Probably late this year or early next year.